Hello, and welcome to today's Intel Brief. I'm your host, Daniel. Today's Friday, 30 May. Jesus, almost June, isn't it? And today we're going to be talking about Russia has accused Serbia of supplying arms to Ukraine. A second Georgian opposition politician has been detained. And Ukraine is awaiting Russia's response to truce terms, with Trump's talks barely alive. So firstly, on Thursday, Russia accused Serbia of exporting arms to Ukraine, saying that it's a stab in the back by its longtime Slavic Balkan ally. Serbian defense enterprises, contrary to the neutrality declaration by officials in Belgrade, continue to supply ammunition to Kiev, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service said in a statement. The statement alleges that the export of Serbian arms to Ukraine are going through NATO intermediaries, primarily in the Czech Republic, Poland, and Bulgaria. Serbia's populist president told a local state television show that he has recently discussed the issue with on arms exports with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that it was agreed that the two countries form a working group to establish how Serbian-made weapons reach the Ukrainian front lines. Serbian arm exports to Ukraine, mostly of Soviet-era caliber ammunition still used by Ukrainian defense forces, have long been known since around 2023, but it is not clear why the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service suddenly decided to talk about it now. So what? I mean, this is one of those classic problems of pragmatism versus politics, right? So it's highly likely that Serbian ammunition companies wanted to capitalize on the current conflict and get in on the the money sweep that's been going through European defense companies. If you want to see more, check out the European defense companies' stocks. They're all absolutely going to the moon at the moment. So yeah, it's likely that they wanted to get involved in a bit of that and make quite a bit of money. And it's also likely that Serbian officials let them do it for kickbacks or, just to help boost Serbian economy. Why Russia has decided to care now, I don't know. It seems a bit strange. But why Russian intelligence has decided to care now seems a bit random. I don't really understand the current situation and how this has a great effect. But yeah, maybe they want something from Serbia, and this is going to be their leverage, calling them out for not being great friends. And next, police in Georgia have detained an opposition politician, as party said on Thursday. The second such detention in a little more than a week of figures denouncing government policies bringing the country closer to Russia. The Coalition for Change, Georgia's largest opposition groups, said that one of its leaders had been detained. News reports said that he'd been held on charges of abusive behavior towards a law enforcement officer and would be appearing in court. So what? This is just, I think this is exactly what I said last time, but just a bit of a sad, further cracking down of the current ruling party in Georgia, which is likely to continue throughout their term until quite possibly they have just complete control of the country and there's no real opposition powers. It's also likely that there's going to be more protests due to these types of crackdowns, as there's a significant majority of the country who don't like the ruling party and have been pretty vocal in their distrust and dislike of them. So yeah, we're likely to see lots more protests throughout the rest of this term and possibly more arrests. Well, likely more arrests, to be fair. And lastly, a senior UN official on Thursday said that there was little hope for negotiations between Russia and Ukraine would produce a deal to halt the fighting between the two sides. The UN official noted that there was cautious optimism, but she expressed a month ago has diminished in the face of recent developments. Russia and Ukraine held a first round of peace talks in Turkey on May 16th, but both sides failed to reach an agreement on a ceasefire. Moscow said that it was impossible to achieve a truce before certain conditions are met, suggested a second round of direct talks to take place next Monday. The Kremlin said on Thursday that it was waiting Kiev's response to its proposal for holding a fresh round of talks. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said this week that Moscow had drafted a memorandum outlining its terms for settling the Ukraine war, but Ukraine had said that Moscow has not shared the proposal. So what? I agree that it seems highly unlikely that any peace will be achieved in the near term, as Russia's requests for what they want for peace in this conflict are pretty wild. They extend to stuff like, taking full control of territory, such as like Zaporizhzhia Oblast and Kherson Oblast, the places where they don't even control the capital city. They want Ukraine to fully withdraw. I think it's like the cities are like over 1 million people each or something, very close to it. And they just want Ukraine to abandon it and walk away. And then also have no support from the West so that, Russia can just do this again in a few years when they decide they're angry about something else. Yeah. Ukraine will never accept that. There's the only way I see Ukraine ceding any territory is if Russia lets the West provide security guarantees to ensure that Russia just doesn't do this again. As that's the only real way to ensure that, Russia doesn't just take the time to reorg, rearm, resupply, and then, in 2030, we'll just see this, run this all back and we'll do it all again, which is the last thing we want, especially in Europe, obviously. So, yeah, I don't know. These peace talks seem dead in the water. Trump clearly can't bring Putin to the table and has absolutely no leverage over him. On the contrary, it seems like Putin has leverage over Trump. So, yeah, he's been no help and just it's not as effective as he claims to have been. Yeah, so that's today. Thank you for listening to the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.